want you to try something for a second. Just pause whatever you're doing right now and listen. Not to me, but to the rhythm of your own life. Because whether you actually realize it or not, there is a beat playing in the background of everything you do.
And we mean that quite literally. You know, from the cadence of your steps on the sidewalk to the way your heart just sort of hammers when you see someone attractive, down to the literal genetic code that dictated your personality before you were even born.
I'm your host, and today we are going on a deep dive into those hidden rhythms.
And I'm your resident expert, and I have to say, the stack of research we have today is honestly a little mind-bending.
It really is. We're looking at exercise physiology studies from Perry and colleagues, some classic psychological experiments on fear and love, plus modern dating strategy guides from Matthew Hussey and Alvaro de Menard.
Not to mention some deep genetic analysis from Kevin Mitchell. It's definitely an eclectic mix.
It is, but the mission here is to connect those dots for you. We want to understand the internal and external signals that actually drive human behavior.
Because this isn't just about, walking faster or getting a date. It's about understanding the machinery under the hood.
Right. So we're going to find out why walking to the Bee Gees might save your life, why your brain actively confuses fear with love, and why being polarizing is actually the safest dating strategy you can have.
If you know the rhythm, you can dance to it. So let's start with something we all do every day, walking.
Yeah, let's talk about walking, because public health guidelines are always telling us to walk briskly. I always hated that word.
Briskly.
What does brisk even mean? Is it like, I'm late for a meeting brisk?
Or running from a bear brisk?
Exactly.
It is surprisingly vague. And that ambiguity is a massive problem for researchers. If you tell people to walk at a moderate intensity, most people just stroll.
They just wander.
Right. They don't get their heart rate up at all. But we have this fascinating study by Perry et al. That tried to put a specific hard number on brisk. They wanted to find the threshold for moderate intensity exercise, the kind that actually benefits your metabolic health.
And they found a magic number.
They did. It's 100 steps per minute.
100 steps. That feels doable.
It is doable, it's purposeful, but it's not a sprint. The study showed that at 100 steps per minute, 90% of participants hit that moderate intensity zone.
Okay.
Now, scientifically, they define this using METs, metabolic equivalents.
Let's unpack METs real quick, because I see that pop up a lot in fitness tech.
Sure. Think of one MET as the amount of energy you burn just sitting on the couch, staring at the wall.
Doing absolutely nothing.
Right. Moderate intensity is defined as 3 to roughly 6 METs. So at 100 steps per minute, you are burning energy 3 times faster than you do at rest. That is the baseline for health.
But here's the fun part of that study. To help people hit that exact cadence, they didn't just yell numbers at them with a stopwatch. They used music.
They did, specifically the Bee Gees.
Staying Alive, which is just
too perfect.
It's amazing.
It's almost medically calibrated to save your life. The original tempo of Staying Alive is about 103 beats per minute. So if you just step to the beat, you are automatically in that healthy, moderate zone.
That's incredible.
In the study, they actually modulated the song to different tempos. So they did 80, 100, and 125 beats per minute. And they asked people to walk instantly. It's a phenomenon called entrainment. Your motor cortex literally just locks onto the rhythm.
Wow.
But here is where it gets nuanced. They tried to push people to vigorous intensity. That's over 6 METs. So they sped the music up to 125 beats per minute.
Did that work?
Surprisingly, not quite. At 125 steps per minute, most people actually fell short of vigorous intensity. Newer research suggests you actually need to hit about 130 steps per minute to cross that threshold.
130 is pretty fast. That's almost a shuffle jog.
It is, and there's a fascinating trade-off here involving something called the walk ratio. This comes from the Ducharme study in our staff.
The walk ratio.
Yeah, the walk ratio is simply your step length divided by your cadence. So how long your step is versus how fast you're taking them.
Okay, perfect.
Usually your body is really smart. It figures out the absolute most efficient way to walk to save energy. But when we consciously walk to a beat, especially a really fast one, we change our natural mechanics.
We take shorter, faster steps to keep up with the snare drum.
Exactly. And our efficiency drops.
Which ironically is exactly what you want for exercise.
You become a less efficient machine, which means you have to burn more fuel to go the exact same distance. So if you want a better workout, put on a 130 BPM playlist and just let yourself walk a little weirdly.
Walk weird for health. I love that. And speaking of measuring all this, I saw a study in the stack from Cruz et al. that literally sounded like science fiction.
Oh, the floor vibration study.
Yeah, they're measuring walking speed using the floor.
It's wild. We usually think about wearables, right? Fitbits, Apple Watches. But this research showed scientists can probabilistically estimate a person's walking speed and cadence just by analyzing how the floor shakes when they walk across it.
So in the future, your smart home might just tell you, hey, the floor vibrations say you're walking a little slow today, pick it up.
Or it might say you're pacing anxiously, which actually is a perfect pivot.
Because that idea of a racing heart leads us directly into the psychology of emotion.
Exactly. Just like we can manipulate our walking speed with a beat, our environment can manipulate how we feel about other people.
This is one of my favorite topics in psychology, the misattribution of arousal.
It's a classic concept. The basic idea is that the brain is a bit of a guessing machine. It feels the body's energy, the arousal, the racing heart, the sweaty palms, and it has to quickly guess why it's happening.
And the fascinating thing is, it looks at the surrounding context to decide what the feeling actually is.
Right. And the most famous example of this is the bridge study.
This story never gets old.
So researchers had men cross two different bridges. One was a safe, low, completely stable bridge. Very boring. The other was the Capilano suspension bridge. It's 450 feet long, swaying in the wind over this massive canyon.
The kind of bridge that makes you grip the railing for dear life. High fear factor.
Exactly. High physiological arousal. Adrenaline is absolutely pumping. So at the end of the bridge, the men were met by a woman, a researcher. She asked them to fill out a questionnaire and write a brief story based on an image.
Standard psychology stuff.
Right, but then she gave them her phone number in case they had follow-up questions.
Questions, sure.
And here's the glitch in the matrix. The men on the scary bridge were far more likely to call her. And not only that, the stories they wrote right after crossing were much more erotic in nature compared to the men on the safe bridge.
So their brains basically went, my heart is pounding, my palms are sweating, I must be wildly attracted to this woman.
When in reality, they were just terrified of falling to their death. They misattributed the clear adrenaline as sexual attraction.
That is amazing, because it implies we don't actually know what we're feeling half the time. We just guess based on who's standing next to us.
And there was another study in the stack that took this even further, the Schachter and Singer study.
Oh, the adrenaline injection.
Yes. This one strips away the bridge entirely. They injected participants with adrenaline so their hearts started racing. Then they put them in a room with an actor.
A Confederate in the study.
Right. In one group, the actor was acting euphorically happy, throwing paper airplanes, just having a great time. In the other group, the actor was angry and irritable.
And the participants mirrored the actor.
They completely mirrored them. The people with the happy actor interpreted their adrenaline rush as joy. They felt great. The people with the angry actor interpreted the exact same physical sensation as anger.
That is slightly terrifying. It means our feelings are just labels we slap on a physical sensation based on whatever room we happen to be standing in.
It completely challenges the idea that our emotions are these pure internal truths, their interpretations. And this concept is hugely important for neurodivergent people too, as mentioned in the Neurodivergent Insights source.
How so?
Well, take the example of sensory overwhelm. Let's say a spouse is crunching cereal loudly. A neurodivergent person might feel a massive surge of physiological arousal, agitation, fight or flight, purely because of the noise sensitivity.
But they might not consciously realize it's just the noise causing the physical reaction.
Exactly. They might look at their spouse and think, I hate you right now. They attribute the arousal to the person, not the sensory input. Recognizing that distinction, saying to yourself, I'm not angry at you, I'm just overstimulated, that can literally save relationships.
That's a massive insight for anyone listening. Okay, so we've established that our brains are easily tricked by adrenaline and context. If that's the case, how do you navigate dating? Because it feels like a minefield if you can't even trust your own pulse.
This is where we turn to the strategists in our source stack. Matthew Hussey and Alvaro de Menard. They basically argue that you can use this off-balance nature of human psychology to your advantage.
Let's start with Hussey. He has this great analogy about flirting. He says flirting isn't jumping into shark-infested waters, it's just putting bait on the tackle.
It's all about lowering the stakes. He suggests these micro moves that create tension without risking a massive, crushing rejection.
I loved the text message example he gave. So imagine you meet a guy, you exchange numbers, he texts you, hey, it's Jason. Instead of saying, hi, Jason, you reply with, who?
Which feels so risky, it spikes that uncertainty.
But then you follow it up immediately with, Unless it's the handsome guy with the nice shoes.
See what happens there? It knocks the other person off balance for a split second. They think, wait, she doesn't remember me? Ouch! And then you hit them with validation.
It's a roller coaster.
It really is. That spike in arousal, that little moment of uncertainty followed by relief, that creates chemistry. It is literally the bridge study in a text message.
He also had this social media tactic called the arms comment.
Oh, this is a classic hussy move. You comment on a photo where they look good, and you just say, your arms in this pic, with a smirk emoji. Or, playfully, you say, I could beat you in an arm wrestle.
It's playful. It's a challenge. It's a compliment wrapped in a tease. It creates that kind of team sport dynamic, which leads us perfectly to Alvaro de Menard.
Menard's writing is fascinating because he flips the script on how most people view dating. He says most people treat it like a battle. It's you versus them. But he argues it should be a team sport. You are looking for a teammate.
But to find that teammate, he introduces this concept called the handcuff rule, which sounds pretty intense.
It does. It refers to his own dating profile, where he literally included a photo of leather handcuffs. Now, that is not going to appeal to everyone. In fact, it's going to make a lot of people run away.
Probably going to get some left swipe.
But that's the entire point. He argues you should not go for broad appeal. You should actively try to be polarizing. If you have a niche interest, whether it's kinks or Dungeons and Dragons or extreme mountain hiking, you should signal it early.
Because you're filtering.
Exactly. You're filtering out the noise. You want to repel the people who aren't a match so you can easily find the ones who are a hell yes. He calls it high ROI dating, return on investment.
And speaking of ROI, Menard also strongly argues that physical fitness is the single highest ROI investment you can make for dating.
He was pretty blunt about that.
Yeah. He says it signals discipline and vitality.
It is an evolutionary signal. It shows you can take care of yourself, which subconsciously implies you can take care of others. And when you combine that underlying fitness signal with something like the soft crab joke...
Wait, we have to explain the soft crab. This was hussy again.
Right, sorry. The soft crab is the idea of creating a shared silly inside joke very early on. Like if you're at a party together and the food is terrible, you lean in and whisper, I can't believe there's no soft crab here.
Which is just nonsense.
Total nonsense. But if you keep bringing it up throughout the night, it creates this us against the world dynamic. You are building a unique, private world with that person.
So we've got walking to a beat, misattributing adrenaline as love, and using inside jokes to build a team. But once you're actually in a relationship, there's another rhythm that matters. The actual music you listen to.
Oh, yes.
The data from TickPick on this was surprisingly robust. They surveyed couples specifically about their music tastes.
And the main headline here for you listeners is, share your earbuds.
Pretty much. Couples who shared music tastes rated their communication significantly higher. It was an 8.2 out of 10 versus just 6.8 for couples who have very different tastes. And thankfully, 98% of couples share at least some musical ground.
Only 2% have entirely different tastes. But not all genres are created equal when it comes to relationship harmony.
No, they are not. If you want a happy relationship, apparently you should be listening to classic rock, oldies, or jazz. Couples bonding over those genres reported the absolute highest satisfaction, scoring over 8.5. And what was the danger zone?
K-pop.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Couples who bonded over K-pop reported the lowest satisfaction, dipping below an 8. Now, obviously correlation isn't causation, but I actually think this goes right back to arousal regulation.
So, connect that for us.
Think about the physiological effect of the music itself. Jazz, oldies, they're generally lower tempo, much more relaxing. They naturally bring the heart rate down. K-pop, on the other hand, is high energy, highly stimulating.
So if you're trying to wind down,
and your partner is blasting high BPM pop music, you are quite literally living in different physiological rhythms.
that makes total sense. It creates a physical friction in the house. And the stats show 74% of singles said they'd swipe right just based on a shared music interest on a dating app. It's a huge signal of compatibility.
Because it regulates our mood. It regulates our arousal levels. Going back to the very beginning of our conversation, we just want someone who vibrates at the exact same frequency we do.
Okay, let's zoom out here. We've talked about the rhythms we can control, our walking speed, our texting strategy, our Spotify playlists. But what about the rhythms we can't control? The ones written deep into our source code.
This brings us to Kevin Mitchell and his deep work on genetics and innate nature. This really is the deepest layer of the dive today.
He uses this great visual of a ball rolling down a hill to explain personality, the Waddington landscape.
Right. Imagine a hilltop with a ball sitting right at the top. As the ball rolls down, it encounters various valleys and ridges. The ball is the developing organism. It's you. The landscape itself is your genetic predisposition.
So some people have a really deep valley for something like right-handedness. The ball is almost guaranteed to roll down into that specific groove.
Exactly. The scientific term is canalization. The outcome is highly protected. The valley is so incredibly deep that it doesn't matter if it rains or if the wind blows hard, the ball is going into that groove.
But for personality traits like anxiety or extroversion, the valleys might be a bit shallower.
Right. You can be nudged one way or another by life events, by trauma, by parenting. But the landscape itself is innate. You can't easily force the ball to roll uphill.
And Mitchell had this fantastic analogy about random mutations in intelligence, the Formula One analogy.
Yes, people often wonder, if evolution improves things, why don't random mutations just make us smarter or faster all the time? Mitchell argues that a human brain is basically a Formula One engine. It is incredibly complex and finely tuned over millions of years.
So if you take a wrench and just bang it randomly into a Formula One engine,
You're almost certainly going to break it. You are very rarely going to accidentally make it run faster.
right.
That's why most random genetic mutations tend to disrupt functioning rather than create X-Men style superpowers. The system is already heavily optimized.
But sometimes the wiring does get crossed in these really fascinating ways, like synesthesia.
Yes, this is one of the strongest proofs that our subjective reality is biologically wired. Synesthesia is a genetic condition where the senses literally blend together. Mitchell describes people who look at the number 7 and experience it physically as violent and kind.
And the number 8 is red and angry.
Exactly. And this isn't just a poetic metaphor for them. For them, it is a literal perceptual reality. It shows that the way we experience the world, whether it feels friendly or scary or colorful, is largely determined by how our unique brain is wired before we even step out the door.
And if anyone out there doubts that personality is genetic, you just have to look at the foxes.
The famous Russian fox experiment. This is the absolute clincher. Researchers took wild foxes and began breeding them based on one single trait: tameness. Did the fox bite the handler's hand, or did it let the human get close?
And within just, 30 generations?
30 generations, they had completely changed the fundamental nature of the animal. These new foxes were eager for human contact, they wagged their tails, their ears even got floppy. They effectively turned wild foxes into domesticated dogs just by selecting for that one behavioral trait.
That is wild.
It strongly suggests that things like friendliness, aggression, and fear are deeply, deeply encoded in our biology.
So let's pull all of this together for you listening. It's been a bit of a wild ride. We are essentially these biological machines. We're wired by our genetics to roll down certain valleys. We walk to a metabolic beat, ideally 100 steps per minute. Our hearts race, and our brains frantically try to label that feeling. Is it fear? Is it love? Is it just the VGs?
It paints a picture of us being somewhat at the mercy of these internal rhythms, but I actually think the core takeaway here is very empowering.
How so?
Because once you can actually see the machinery, you can start to operate it. If you know that brisk walking is vague, you can look at your watch and deliberately hit 100 steps per minute. If you know your brain easily misinterprets adrenaline, you can choose a date activity that's exciting, like a comedy show or an amusement park, to consciously attack that attraction.
Or you can intentionally avoid the scary bridge if you need to make a calm, rational decision about someone.
Exactly. And if you know that music directly affects your relationship satisfaction, you can be intentional about finding that shared soundtrack. We aren't just passive passengers here. We can absolutely be the conductors of these rhythms.
I love that perspective. And it brings me to the final thought I want to leave you with today. We talked a lot about how we can trick our brains into feeling love by raising our heartbeat. But what if we flip that entirely?
What do you mean by that?
Well, if fear looks exactly like love to the brain, maybe love is actually supposed to be a little scary. Maybe if you're engaging in dating or trying to deepen a long-term relationship and you don't feel that sudden spike of adrenaline, that specific fear of the suspension bridge, maybe you're playing it too safe.
That is a very provocative thought. Perhaps the safe bridge just leads to safety, but the scary bridge is where the story actually happens.
Something for you to chew on while you take your 100 step per minute walk today.
Just maybe don't lick any cactuses while you're out there.
Solid advice. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.